Right now, somewhere in the world, a newborn is being held, skin against skin, a heartbeat close enough to feel it seems small, almost automatic, something every baby just gets. But the real answer is far stranger than that, because for a long stretch of the 20th century, scientists genuinely believed touch didn't matter at all. And what happened when they tested that belief changed psychology forever. Let's go back to the 1950s, when a psychologist named Harry Harlow decided to challenge one of the dominant ideas of his time at that point. The leading theory of infant attachment was almost entirely transactional. Babies loved their mothers, the thinking went, simply because mothers provided food, comfort, touch, warmth. None of that was considered essential. Love was just a byproduct of hunger being satisfied. Harlow doubted this, so he built an experiment to test it directly. He raised infant rhesus monkeys with two artificial mother figures. One was made of cold wire mesh, but it held a bottle and provided milk. The other was covered in soft cloth, warm to the touch, but offered no food at all. If the leading theory was correct, the baby monkeys should have bonded with the wire mother. Since that's where the food was, that is not what happened. The infant monkeys spent nearly all of their time clinging to the soft cloth mother. They would only leave her briefly to feed from the wire mother, and then rush straight back to the cloth one, wrapping themselves around her for comfort. When researchers introduced something frightening into the cage, the monkeys ran not to their food source, but to the soft, warm figure that offered no nourishment at all. Harlow's conclusion reshaped the entire field. Comfort and touch, it turned out, weren't a side effect of parental care. They were a core, independent need, as essential, in their own way, as food itself. But Harlow's research, as important as it was, still involved monkeys, not humans. The next chapter of this story is far harder to sit with, because it involves real children. In the early 1990s, following the collapse of Romania's Ceausescu regime, researchers gained access to a devastating window into what happens when human infants grow up with almost no physical touch at all. Tens of thousands of children had been raised in severely under-resourced state orphanages, often left in cribs for nearly the entire day, with minimal holding, minimal eye contact, and caregivers stretched so thin that basic physical affection became nearly non-existent. What researchers found, in what later became known as the Bucharest Early Intervention Project, was staggering. Many of these children showed significantly delayed physical growth, even when caloric intake was adequate. Their brain scans revealed measurably reduced brain volume compared to children raised in typical family environments. Cognitive development lagged. Emotional regulation was often severely impaired. The condition even has a name: failure to thrive, a diagnosis originally used for infants who failed to grow or develop properly despite receiving sufficient nutrition. For decades, doctors had documented cases of this in institutional settings without fully understanding the mechanism. The Romanian orphan studies made the missing piece unmistakable. It wasn't calories these children lacked, it was touch. Here's what researchers now understand is actually happening in the body during physical contact, something Harlow could observe only through behavior, but that modern neuroscience can now measure directly. Skin-to-skin contact triggers the release of oxytocin, a hormone closely tied to bonding, trust, and stress reduction. It also helps regulate cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone. In infants specifically, touch has been shown to help stabilize heart rate, regulate body temperature, and even support healthier immune function. A baby who is held regularly isn't just emotionally soothed. Their entire physiological system is being calibrated by that contact, learning, essentially, how to regulate itself. Without that input, particularly during the earliest and most sensitive windows of development, the nervous system doesn't just miss out on comfort, it can fail to develop some of its most basic self-regulating machinery altogether. This is also where psychologists John Bowlby's work on attachment theory becomes essential. Bowlby proposed that infants are biologically wired to seek proximity to a caregiver, not simply for survival in the immediate sense, but because that early bond becomes the template for how a person will relate to others for the rest of their life. Children who experience consistent, responsive physical closeness in infancy tend to develop what's called secure attachment, a foundation strongly associated with better emotional regulation, healthier relationships, and greater resilience to stress well into adulthood. Children denied that closeness often develop different attachment patterns entirely, patterns that can persist for decades, quietly shaping how a person trusts, connects, and responds to intimacy long after infancy is a distant memory. So if you were held often as a baby, rocked, hugged, kept close, you likely have no conscious memory of any of it. And yet, in a very real sense, your nervous system remembers. It was built, in part, by that contact. And if you weren't, that absence may have left traces too, ones that had nothing to do with anything you did, and everything to do with circumstances entirely outside your control. That newborn being held somewhere in the world right now isn't just experiencing a nice moment, they're being built by it. You were never asking for too much when you needed to be held. You were asking for exactly what your body was designed to require, and whether you received it or not, you carry that answer with you still, written into a nervous system